Hi everybody. I think I've got a little bit of a problem in terms of lighting. I'm going to have to shift the focus of the camera, I think, because it's later in the day and I'm getting a lot of light behind me so you can see it kind of that way. Let me try to change it. Be right back. Well, this is awkward. I'm not finding any angle that works for right now. Okay, I think it made somewhat of a difference. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit later in the day and my light stinks, but that's the way the day worked out and I've only got 7 days left, so I have to maximize every day now. I will tell you at the start of this, having nothing to do with the subject today, and the subject is going to be more about the spiritual side of me and some of the early stirrings and kind of how I see things and how I perceive them. Okay, I had a wonderful, wonderful day today. I went out to lunch with a friend. We went to a restaurant where the food was marvelous. I should have taken a picture. I ate more today than I've eaten probably since I started radiation, in the sense that I can't eat that much at one time these days. And I did have some Caesar salad today, and I had chicken franchise with linguine in a marinara sauce, and my friend ordered this unbelievable cake at the end, and I had a little bit of that. It was a chocolate mousse cake that was incredible, tall, layers, and the chocolate mousse tasted like a combination of chocolate pudding with chocolate ice cream. I mean, it was just absolutely delicious. And they gave me 2 pieces of chicken plus the pasta plus the salad, so I have enough for another full meal, so that is a gift. So it was really nice. I felt relaxed getting out. My leg is bothering me. I'm hoping that the pain that I'm feeling these days is, the radiation oncologist had mentioned that as the if the tumor pulls away from the nerve and from the muscle, which is what they hope, that's best case scenario, it will be painful. It's a painful process, but it'll make the surgery easier. So I'm praying that that's what the pain is about. I am accepting the pain, and I'm fine with the pain because I'm perceiving it that way, and I hope that's what it is, so I'm dealing with it. Okay, now to the topic of the day. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that whole spiritual side of me and kind of how it evolved for me on so many levels. In the early days, I told you I had asked to have some way to help people not be in the kind of pain I was in when my Uncle Harry died, and that was terribly painful. I had also had quite a bit of early loss in my life because my parents were older, and my father was the baby of his family, and the people in his world were a whole lot older. So the people in my world were a lot older, and there was a lot of loss. And of course, having been with my Aunt Yetta in the early days when I was 3 years old, one of the times that my mother couldn't be with me, we were out in Rockaway, as I recall. It was during the summer, and I guess my aunt had me at a local park or someplace where there was a slide, and the story goes that I wanted to go on the slide. I was 3 years old, mind you, and I was wearing shorts, and I climbed up the slide, and I must have done it over and over again and had a wonderful time. This particular time I went up the slide, and the cuff of my shorts got caught on the metal handle as you went around, and instead of going down the slide, I went over the edge. In those days, that was before they put softer material under it, so whether it was a softer surface, it was concrete. and I hit square on my head on the concrete. Apparently I was knocked out cold. A whole group of people came around and they told and my aunt was frantic wanting to find a doctor, and they said, the way the story came to me all the years I was growing up is that they said, don't bother with a doctor, she's a goner. So here I was at 3 coming out of this passed out state, hearing she's a goner, or hearing, you know, it's too late for a doctor, or whatever it was, the way the scenario went, it was another brick that formed the foundation of my life and my fears and all the things that I had to deal with that a child of that age should never have to deal with. I should never have known that life was not infinite. Well, life on earth was not infinite. And I shouldn't have known that at the tender age of 3. I shouldn't have had it reiterated for me in such a devastating way at the age of 6 when my Uncle Harry died. So as a result, as I said, I had asked God for some way for me to make sure that nobody else felt the kind of pain I was feeling, and how could I help? I think I perceived even as a young child that if I helped other people, that it would be something good for me in some way, and it would be a way for me not to focus on myself and my own pain, but to put it out there in a way to be useful. The early feelings that I got, they were stirrings really, and I hadn't thought about this in years because it hasn't happened to me in a long time. But every time something horrible was about to happen, I could be having a perfectly wonderful day. Everything could have been going great. And all of a sudden, I would get a feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I was shaky, and I was nervous. And I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know whether it was me. I didn't know that it was something outside of myself. In those days, I just knew that I felt it. Inevitably, when the terrible thing happened, whatever the latest terrible thing was, the feeling went away. So that was how I knew things were coming. It was nebulous at the time. Very nonspecific and nebulous, but it was nevertheless there and part and parcel of who I was. As I got older and I started to get more direct information about things and people, I started to get requests. This was by the time I was an adult, but a young adult. I used to get requests from people to tell them what was happening, and I would say to them, I can't do that. And they would say, but you can. So there seemed to be a knowledge in other people more about what I was able to do than I had myself at the time, because I had not expanded my consciousness. I had not started meditating yet. I had not done the reading of all the things yet. I had done some early readings that may have stirred some of this stuff. But what happened for me was I would, whenever somebody asked me to do a reading, which I came to know it as later on, where they wanted me to tell them something, I would get a feeling about something, but I never knew what it meant because I saw symbols. It was not a direct, the way some of these people on TV or, you know, they'll say, oh, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, as if somebody's whispering in their ear. That is not the way it works for me, never has been. I see symbols. I'll give you a small aside, and this happened later on, but in the later years of my doing this, or as the time started going by, and people would ask me to tell them what I felt about any given thing, at the end of telling them things about themselves, inevitably, I would get some kind of world information. At one point, I was very aware that there was something that was going to happen in Texas, and that somebody was going to be killed in Texas, but it would have very far-reaching effects. It was not going to be limited to a Texas incident. And of course that turned out to be the whole David Koresh thing, because it happened very shortly after that. And the minute it happened, I knew that that was what it was. I didn't know David Koresh. I didn't know anything about, I think it was called the Branch Davidians. I didn't know anything about any of that. But when it happened, it sort of revealed itself to me. But that's the way I saw it. I did see that there was some sort of burst of gunfire or explosive kind of thing, but I didn't know what any of it meant. That's just an aside. What had happened was, when I started to get information about people, I didn't know what the information meant. And I'm grateful that I didn't know, because the truth is, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to invade anybody's privacy, and I didn't really want to be, I was a reluctant reader. I never chose to do that. I seemed to be chosen for it because people seemed to keep coming to me. My mother knew things were going to happen, but as I say, she called it woman's intuition, so it was acceptable in the world. And there were certain symbols that always came to me and always meant the same thing. For example, if a big change was coming up in somebody's life, I would see it as a big wave. And depending upon how tall the wave was, I would know whether it was a huge change or not as big a change. And I would also see things coming up for them. I would see the pages of a book turning, which I presume had something to do with the book of their lives and where their lives were headed. So there were two little incidents that I'll give you, and I think I'm going to stop this one there, because once again, I just don't want to give you too much of this stuff all at once. And I'm not all that comfortable with it yet, because as I say, I just don't talk about this a lot. I don't share it a lot. In one of the readings, and I may have told you this, when my mother died, I had booked a psychic a year ahead, clearly not knowing my mother was not going to be there. This woman was very popular. It took a year to get an appointment with her. I had 12 or 13 people coming to my house, and they were coming for a reading. And when the woman showed up, she was awful. She didn't know what she was talking about. She wasn't right about anything. I don't know who she was, but it did not work. She wound up not staying, and here I had all these people here, and I felt terrible. So one of the women who had known me for years said, "Why don't you do it?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? I don't do this." And she said, "I know you can." So at that point, there was somebody there I'd never met before. I had never seen her before. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know her name. I didn't know anything about her. And we went off into a room, and I closed my eyes, because that's what I do. I close my eyes and I see images that go across my closed eyes. And I saw nothing. And I thought, well, see, I can't do this. It's nothing. And then everything I saw was just black. And I finally said to her, I said, all I'm seeing is black. I said, are you depressed? And she said to me, I'm clinically depressed. And the minute she said that, everything opened up and I started to see images. The first image I remember seeing for her was a woman with a long neck wearing a fur. And she was a very elegant looking woman. I mean, she looked like a model. And there was a man behind her, so she was superimposed on him, almost like film where one image is superimposed on another. And she had, when I started to say it, I said, there's a man here and he's there for you. I said, I don't know who he is, but all I can tell you is I see him. He's an older man, and the woman in front of him, the image, is a woman with a long neck wearing a fur. And I always told people the images that I saw because I didn't know what they meant, but they often did. So she said, yes, there is such a man in my life. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, do you understand this? She said, yes, he's a furrier. And all of a sudden, I was, whoa. So that was how it kind of happened for me very often. There were many, many, many incidents over the years. When I worked in a hospital, people would come to me all the time and ask me to read them about this or that or whatever it was, and I didn't want to do it. But people were troubled by something or other. In this one case, a woman asked me to tell her she was concerned about her daughter and this guy in her daughter's life. And the one thing that I said at that point was, I will not look into somebody's life without their permission. I'm not going to do it as if I am intruding or I'm a voyeur, or I won't do it. And I just couldn't do that. I did see things and I did see what was going on, but I was not going to do that. And what I often did, it was very hard for me in the earlier years to close the window. And images I would be besieged by them, and it made my life difficult. But I did learn how to turn it off because I can't live my life like that. It's like having all this stuff going on in front of you so that you can't focus on anything. So that, my friends, is just a tiny little taste of some of the stuff, and that I guess we'll consider it chapter 2. So once again, if it still retains your interest and you want to see more, hear more, let me know. Take care, enjoy your day, and I am just thrilled. I have a functioning air conditioner at this point. I forgot to tell you that day when it was the hottest day of the year, I think I did mention it, my air conditioner cut out. I had no central air. It was as hot as blazes in my house. For 2 days, I thought, this cannot be added to my burden. It cannot be. But thankfully, I was able to call this guy, thanks to Linda again. It was somebody that she knew of, somebody who had done work for her. And he came out right after the holiday, and he fixed my air conditioner. It was an expense I certainly did not need at this moment in time. I wish it hadn't happened, but I'm grateful that I had a solution that was quick. And it made my life just a little bit easier going forward until we get to the post-surgery and hopefully the ride back to a better place and full recovery. So that's my prayer, that's my hope, and this is my gift to you if in fact it helps you at all. Take care. Love you all.